I was saying y'all, your boy Rico from Street Scores, and man, what a game, man. And one of my biggest takeaways from this game, and of course, with all of my breakdowns, any game reviews I do, we're going to go player by player, position group by position group, starting with quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, offensive line, literally go section by section and go all the way through the defense, even special teams and coaching as well. We're going to talk about a lot of the interesting play calls from both sides of the ball, both good and bad. We're going to break everything down, but one of my biggest takeaways from this is that I kind of like the way that this game went. Of course, it would be nice to be one of those teams to just completely run up the score. We easily could have scored a touchdown right there to go up 30-10. Honestly, that last touchdown by the Texans, you could tell we just took our foot off the gas on defense. They had to convert like 2 fourth downs on that drive alone just to get that touchdown, 2 or 3 fourth downs. So that score easily, very easily could have just been 30-3, my fault. And so even though the score doesn't look like it, that was a very dominant win. And like I said, even before the game started, in my live play-by-play analysis stream for the game, before the first kickoff, I said it is so nice to wake up on a Sunday and expect the Commanders to win a game. To expect them to not only win but dominate, like expect it. Not only just be like, you know what, we should win today, but who knows? Or like I hope we win, you never know type of thing. That's usually our attitude. And then even sometimes we're like, there's no way we're gonna win. I'm pretty sure a lot of people went to the Eagles game like there's just no hope. But even at best, like best case scenario for us has been to basically be like, we're better than them, but who knows? That's always usually the feeling going into Sunday games for teams that were better than them. But I actually woke up today and expected us to win. I expected us to dominate on both sides of the ball. We literally did that. That score does not tell it all, and I think it's a very interesting parallel to my Georgia Bulldogs, because the Georgia Bulldogs could have scored 40 plus points on everybody they played this season. You can tell by the way that they played against Tennessee and Oregon that literally anybody we played this season, we could have ran it up to 40 or 50 points on guys. And if we would have played our starters the entire game, we would probably hold people to 13 points or less probably every game this season as well. Whenever we care, but a lot of the times the main philosophy is to get in, dominate early, run the clock, and get out with the least amount of injuries as possible. And especially after Benjamin St. Juste looked a little nicked up, and Terry McLaurin even had something going on in the first quarter where I was a little worried about him. James Smith-Williams got hurt later on in the fourth quarter. You can kind of tell that Ron Rivera was like, hey man, we're going to win this game regardless. Doesn't matter if we score 30 points. Doesn't matter if we score 100. Doesn't matter if we don't score again. Can we just please get out of this game safely? And I'm not mad at that. That's what Kirby Smart does with Georgia. A lot of people always act like Georgia's offense isn't that great. We literally just take our foot off the gas. We're just trying to end the game because we don't care about blowing people out. We care about winning games and being the healthiest team come playoff time. And I think that's what the Commanders have a great chance of doing. Honestly, with the way that the Commanders played today, again, one of my biggest takeaways is the fact that we were expected to win. We were expected to dominate. And we did it, and that's just unusual for us. Us being 5-5 going against a 1-8-1 team. Usually, we're going into that game fairly confident that we should win, but you never know. But today, I actually woke up today like, man, honestly, when you look at the film, when you look at what the Texans have done, when you look at what we've done the past couple of weeks, we really are supposed to win this game for sure. So I never really second guessed it, even when our offense came out a little flat in the beginning. The pick six set it off. I already knew from there. I mean, somebody even jokingly said on Twitter, if the Commanders score 13 points at any point in this game, it's probably over. And lo and behold, only with the garbage time touchdown, have to convert 2 or 3 fourth downs to even get that touchdown. The Texans only scored 10 points. We could have scored 13 points and won this game. But luckily, our offense was a little bit better than that. We should have scored 30. Shouts out to the defense for giving us 7 of those. But man, this was a dominant win. And back to my original point that I was making, the way we played against the Vikings, we should have beat them. The way we played against the Eagles, and not only the fact that we beat them, but the way that we dominated them and physically imposed the way that we did, and we were the aggressors. We were the ones doing the punching in the mouth and stuff like that. The way that we played in those 2 games, those are supposedly the 2 best teams in the NFC, right? By record, and even like, you know, by analysis, most people would say those are the 2 best teams in the NFC, right? If we should have beat the Vikings, and if we did beat the Eagles, who are we afraid of? So my point is, even as bad as things have looked lately, and I'm still not entirely confident in Taylor Heinicke like a lot of y'all are, but he is the hot hand, and he played fairly well today. I would say he played better against the Eagles overall. And then, I mean, the stats, 15 for 27, barely over 50% completion percentage, 191 yards, no touchdowns and no interceptions. But I feel like today's stat line was that meh and that ugly because we knew we didn't have to force things. Davis Mills had two interceptions, one of them a pick six. Taylor Heinicke knew he just had to make plays when he had to. I love the plays that he made on like 2nd and long and 3rd and long. This was probably his best game as far as converting first downs on ugly situations. For us as a Commanders fan, we all know it. 3rd and 7 sounds like, oh yeah, get ready to punt. Come on, defense, let's go ahead and get ready to go out in the field. But lately, these past couple of games, and even today, even though it wasn't a great game from Taylor Heinicke, he made the plays when he had to make them. So I'm not mad at that. So the Eagles game was probably his best game as far as playing a full 4 quarters. But then he also had that bad interception. Today, he didn't make any huge mistakes. He was fairly inaccurate at times. Pretty accurate, pretty inaccurate sometimes here and there. So it wasn't a great game. But I think the best part about what Taylor Heinicke did today, and again, we're going to talk about him in detail later, but the best part of what he did today was make plays when he had to. And honestly, if the way we played against the top 2 NFC teams, the way we did, who are we afraid of? I think if we play the way we've been playing, we should be able to beat Dallas. I think we should be able to beat the 49ers. We played the Giants twice. We should at least be able to beat them one of those times. That should get us into the playoffs. We're 6-5. We're over 500. We beat the Falcons, which we should, which we're expected to beat, even though they are easily a better team than the Texans. Not even just record-wise, but they're better coached. They're everything. They're not very talented. We have more talent, but they're more talented than the Texans, so we're definitely got to take them more seriously, and they're always close in games. Doesn't matter who they play. The Falcons always find a way to be close with teams. But yeah, man, we should be 7-5 after we beat the Falcons. Honestly, I'm not trying to get too far ahead, but honestly, what team? My main question is, what team is not afraid to play us? I don't care if you're the Vikings, I don't care if you're the Eagles, I don't care if you're the 49ers, Packers, anybody. You're looking at the Commanders right now. Like, I know their record doesn't really look like it, but that may be the team I want to play the least. You know how playoff football goes, especially in the cold. Running the ball in defense is how you try to win games. It would be lovely if we had a quarterback to make plays when we need to. And again, Taylor Heinicke didn't have a great game today per se, but when we needed a 2nd and 9 to turn into a first down on a throwing play, we put it on Heinicke's shoulders. Granted, there was a lot of great play calling from Scott Turner. And then our red zone, we're going to talk about Scott Turner and Taylor Heinicke red zone wise, but in general, just in case if I just end up not talking about it, because so many thoughts are running through my head right now. But our red zone offense was terrible. Scott Turner calling weird plays in the red zone. Taylor Heinicke struggling. The offensive line struggling too. Our red zone offense was atrocious today. Got to be better than that moving forward. But in general, as long as our defense is still playing the way that it is, and it would be lovely if we get Chase Young back. And if we can run the ball the way we've been doing, even though it hasn't been necessarily a great yards per carry, even though today actually it kind of was. Normally our yards per carry are atrocious, you know what I'm saying? But today, we had 3.8. That's a slight improvement. We had 40 rushing attempts, 153 yards. That's slightly better, and I felt like we got more chunk plays today rushing the ball than normal. We got like a handful of like 10+ yard runs, 8+ yard runs today. So I was pretty impressed with that. We didn't break anything for 8 yards against the Eagles. It didn't feel like we did. Today we kind of got a few. But again, if we can run the ball and play defense the way we do now, no team wants to play us in the playoffs, especially if Chase Young is back healthy. And to me, Taylor Heinicke and Scott Turner are only starting to understand each other better. Again, to me, the Eagles game was Taylor Heinicke's most complete 4th quarters. I felt like we won in spite of him against the Colts. He sold the Vikings game, even though he was playing fairly well for at least 2.5 quarters. Any other game he's played in that we've won, we've won in spite of him, really until that Eagles game. And in that Eagles game, he actually played, for the most part, a really good four quarters outside of maybe 2 or 3 throws. And then today, he was inaccurate times, but whenever, again, we needed a 3rd and 7, Taylor Heinicke made the play that we needed to get it a lot of the time. And I'm just really proud of him. Now, granted, we went 3 of 13 on 3rd downs. But luckily, our defense is so good, the Texans went 2 of 13. So our defense was, their offense was even worse. But I don't know, it just seemed like, even though we were 3 of 13 on third down, it seemed like whenever we got into a 2nd and 9, we were able to get it. So I feel like 3 of 13 doesn't tell the whole story. We were terrible on third downs, even though Taylor Heinicke did pick up a couple. It just seems like on 2nd and long, we were able to find something to where we didn't even need to get in third down situations. So I'm not too mad. 3 and 13 is terrible, but I'm not too mad. Again, Taylor Heinicke didn't play great. I wouldn't even necessarily say he played very well, but he made plays when we needed him in the run game. We're winning because of the run game and the defense. And again, that's playoff football. So if we can keep this up, what team are we afraid of? Honestly, what NFC team is looking at us like, man, I can't wait to play them if they make the playoffs? Not everybody. They have to be afraid of us. And back to my main point, honestly, whoever ends up being the Super Bowl representative for the NFC is going to be the team that's the healthiest and they got hot at the best time. Right now, you can argue we're the hottest team in NFC. We may technically have the worst record in the NFC. In the NFC East, my fault. But we're probably the hottest team in the NFC East. We're hotter than the Eagles. The Eagles barely won and we just beat them. I don't think the Cowboys are that good. The Giants just lost, and I think the Vikings will probably beat the Cowboys. I think even fairly convincingly. I may look stupid just a few hours from now by the time that game ends, but I think the Vikings should win that game. And so honestly, we're the hottest team in the NFC East. We beat the team with the best record in the NFL. We may not be the best team, and even record-wise, we're not the best team, but we're the hottest team. And honestly, if we're the hottest team and we're one of the healthier teams, we can go on a run for the end of the season and possibly even go on a playoff run, just like the Giants did the year that they went to the Super Bowl, where they barely squeezed into the wild card. It could be something just like that. And right now, if the 49ers win, we're a half game behind them, but I mean, hopefully they don't win, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully, if Arizona beats them, we have that 7th playoff spot, and it's 4 NFC East teams in the playoffs. That will be the first time in NFL history that 4 teams from the same division makes the playoffs, and then at that point, we're in the driver's seat. We play the 49ers. All you got to do is handle business against them. We play the Giants twice. At least beat them once. You should beat them twice. Beat the Falcons. Beat the Cowboys. We'll see about Cleveland. We're in the playoffs, and we're not even the 7th seed. We're chilling. You know what I'm saying? There's a path to us having a playoff first round bye. You know what I'm saying? Potentially, maybe. You never know. If we get really, really hot and the Eagles fall off or the Vikings fall off, doubt it. But I think our chances of making the playoffs are good. But my most important point is not only making the playoffs, but I think we can actually go on a playoff run if we continue to play this type of football. But man, I mean, this intro was long enough. Intro was very long, so I'm sorry for the intro being. I just had to get a lot of that off my chest before I forgot. But yeah, man, y'all know how this goes. Before we dive into everything, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you pull up every game day for my live play-by-play analysis. We laugh together, we learn together, all of that. We talk about everything too in my streams. If you haven't been, make sure you pull up. We talk about anime. We were talking about World Cup today. We were talking about college football and my Georgia Bulldogs, Ohio State. We were talking about everything today. We talk about music, everything. So make sure y'all pull up, man, and represent, because our Commanders Nation is everywhere. So we also do like a little roll call of where everybody's from. We got Louisiana building, we got Mexico. Really interactive, fun stream. So make sure you pull up. And again, I'm speaking it into existence. I'm streaming for every regular season game, but I'm also going to be streaming for every postseason game because I'm dead serious about that. And without further ado, let's get it. All right, so just before we dive too far into it, one notable thing is that the Texans were 4-4 on 4th downs. They converted all of theirs. We converted all of ours too, but we only went for 2. We got both of them. I believe both of them were like 4th and 1 situations, and it was just easy. Brian Robinson bounced one outside. It was so beautiful. I love seeing him run outside. I love the fact that he's adding that to his game. We had 67 total plays to their 54, so it wasn't as dominant as the Eagles game time of possession wise, with 34 minutes 56 seconds to their 25 minutes 4 seconds, but it was definitely a more dominant win period. The Texans had the ball longer than the Eagles had it, but they did less with it in that time anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. Again, Taylor Heineke, 15 to 27, 191 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. In comparison to the worst, Davis Mills, 19 of 33, 169 yards, 2 interceptions. You can't put your team down 7-0 in a situation like that. So he was bad today. He made a couple of nice throws, but overall was bad. They had 2.7 yards per play. We had 5.1. That's pretty good, man. I mean, even though running the ball wise, we had around like with 3 point something yards per rush. We had 3.8 yards per rush, which isn't great. Dameon Pierce. Oh, Dameon Pierce. I love Dameon Pierce. I think he's a really good running back. But Dameon Pierce, oh, they're going to be able to run the ball on them Commanders. 1.3 yard per rush. Stop playing with me. They had 16 rush attempts for 21 yards. Come on now. That's the worst game he's going to have probably in his career. So, you know, that's just stuff Commanders do. You know what I'm saying? That's what we do to people. We had 153 rushing yards to their 21. That's ridiculous in itself. But again, we were running the ball to run out the clock. But even then, knowing that we were running the ball to run out the clock, we were still able to pick up first downs running the ball. That last drive right there, we were able to get first downs enough to where they used all of their timeouts. They even had the 2-minute warning, and we still were able to run the clock out all the way. That was beautiful. We also, we had one, they had, I mean, of course, they had 2 turnovers, both Davis Mills interceptions. We didn't have any turnovers. So that's also really good to win the turnover battle, to win the time of possession battle. You're usually going to win those type of games. We had 10 passing first downs, 9 rushing first downs. So that was about an even game right there, man. About even. 191 passing yards, 153 rushing yards. That's how you win games, man. At least that's how we win games. And I'm worried about how sustainable that is once teams really focus on stopping it. But one thing that I really have to take notice for about Scott Turner and why this today was so beautiful to watch, everybody was getting it in today, man. My boy Antonio Gibson had 18 carries, Brian Robinson had 15, Curtis Samuel had 2, Jahan Dotson had 1, Terry McLaurin had 1, and Taylor Heineke had 3, but I think 2 of those were scrambles. Only one of them was like a design run, which we need to do more. I think Taylor Heineke needs to run more read option anyway. But Logan Thomas had 6 targets, Terry McLaurin had 7, and I'm pretty sure most of them, if not all of them, came in the first half. I don't even remember Terry McLaurin being involved in the second half. I don't know if he was hurt a little bit. We got to monitor that. But Gibson had 3 targets. Cam Sims even had 1 for that catch for 17 yards. Jahan Dotson had 2 targets. Curtis Samuel had 2 targets. It just seemed like every time Logan Thomas was going crazy, and then they started to focus on him, here comes Curtis Samuel. Soon as Curtis Samuel starts going crazy, here comes Jahan Dotson. As soon as they start going crazy, here comes Terry. Soon as you focus on all of the receivers, here come Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. Today was a beautiful, really balanced day. Again, very reminiscent of Georgia, how Georgia gets everybody involved. Everybody gets a certain amount of carries and targets. And it's just like, who do you game plan for? If you game plan stopping, say if for somehow you can just stop Terry and Curtis Samuel, then what are you going to do with Logan Thomas, and Jahan Dotson, Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, and even Cam Sims for 1 good catch today? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just the offense that we should have been had this. Now, shouts out to Scott Turner for orchestrating this. Shouts out for Taylor Heineke for doing what you got to do. Again, not a great game, but doing enough to where we can win games like this, to where we can dominate lesser opponents. We'll see what we do against better teams. We just did it again. We should have beat the Vikings. We should have done it against the Eagles. So I'm fairly confident about this team moving forward. But shouts out to Scott Turner's play calling. Again, when we got to the red zone, it got a little funky, but I mean, who do you game plan for? Honestly, as long as the offensive line is doing their job, who do you game plan for? Even if you pick 3 guys, there's still another 4 that can hurt you. It's dangerous. This offense has so much potential to be dangerous. That's why I keep saying, I'm sorry I keep saying it because I know he's not our quarterback. Taylor Heineke is our quarterback right now. But if you were to put the way that Justin Fields is playing right now in this team, we're Super Bowl contenders. The current Justin Fields of the past 3-4 weeks on this team, there's nothing you can game plan for. He has a stronger arm and better legs than Heineke. And hey, I'm not hating on Heineke because Heineke and Justin Fields are both from Atlanta. I want them both to be great, but I'm just trying to put it into perspective how great this team could be once we find that franchise quarterback. I keep saying it. I said it even before the Ravens game. Other teams are jealous of our skill position players. The Ravens, if they had our receivers, tight ends, and running backs, you don't think they would give up a whole organ to do that? You know what I'm saying? Lamar Jackson would give up his intestine to have the receivers, running backs, and tight ends that we have. Just imagine what happens if, first of all, we're going to have to draft O-line high because this O-line is getting on my nerves. Even though at times they block well, kind of when it matters most. Sometimes it seems like they have a little bit of clutch to them, but they get beat way too often in certain situations, and our tight ends are having to step up big time to help these offensive linemen that are getting beat. We just need to definitely go crazy on drafting guard, like second round at the latest type of thing, or maybe go crazy in free agency for a guard, whatever we got to do. But as long as the offensive line is blocking well, this team should go really far, especially if we're able to get a franchise quarterback, man. This defense is playing lights out. We're going to talk about them. But yeah, man, just to go to Taylor Heinicke real quick, again, I already pretty much said most of it. I mean, a pretty decent game. He did what he had to do. Nothing flashy statistically. Again, I think overall, if I had to compare this game to the Eagles game, I would say the Eagles game was definitely better. But this game was definitely better than what he did against the Colts and them other teams. I mean, I know, granted, the last 5 minutes of the Colts game was amazing. He was in Taylor Heinicke mode, clutch. But he was the reason we only had 7 points with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter anyway. He's the main reason why we were even in that situation to where he had to pull a rabbit out the hat to pull a magic trick to even score 10 points that late. So, I mean, I appreciate the clutch gene in him that he has, but sometimes he's the reason we're even in those situations where he's bailing himself out. He's not bailing out anybody else. He's bailing himself out when it comes to that type of stuff. So, but today I like the fact that even though inaccurate times, even though making some bad decisions on where he was going with the ball, overall it was a good enough day. That's the best way to describe it. I wouldn't even necessarily say it was good, because it's kind of both, because he wasn't great, but at the same time it got to a point where we just wanted to run the ball. So Taylor Heinicke could have probably thrown for 200 and something, maybe 300 yards, and maybe even thrown for a touchdown, but the goal was to run the ball and run the clock out. So that's not his fault that we only threw the ball. I mean, 27 times does kind of sound like a lot, but it really isn't. He could have completed more of his passes. Again, he only completed 15 to 27, which is not great. You know, you would think as a game manager you would have higher than a 50-something% completion percentage. That's not good. But he made the plays that needed to be made at some of the time. Not all of the time, but some of the time. And we just needed you to not mess up. When you play against a lesser team like this, don't mess up, especially with a defense like this, especially with a run game like this and the weapons that you have. Don't mess up. We have a field goal kicker now that can make whatever field goal we need him to make. We have Tressway, other than the first quarter, who can punt his tail off and dominate the field position battle. My fault. We just have so many phases of football that are so good that as long as the quarterback isn't selling us, we can win games like this. Now, I don't know what's going to happen if we run into a brick wall in the playoffs where you're going against better quarterbacks. Taylor Heinicke's going to have to play better. But when you're going against lesser teams like this is okay. I'm not mad at him. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I still want to see Sam Howell go out there at some point this season, because I really want to know what we have in him before we draft the guy in this draft. Because if we're even slightly unsure about Sam Howell, you need to draft the guy in the first round. Trade up, whatever you got to do. I love Taylor Heinicke, but him being our starting quarterback next year is still a little iffy to me. And I'm just not sure about Sam Howell. Love him. I like his potential. But at the end of the day, we drafted him in the 5th round. So how much do they actually really value him? And so I hope at some point this season we're just up 40-0. Oh, it's my fault. 40-0 on somebody, and Sam Howell can just come in and start like a whole quarter or maybe even a half. That would be lovely. I would absolutely. That's a best case scenario. We can see what he's got in him. If he looks terrible, then draft your quarterback in the offseason. It's that simple. But Taylor Heinicke right now, he's the high hand. Keep going with him. It's all right. And then we'll go to the running backs next. Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. Nobody has an answer for them. Again, I mean, 18 carries, 72 yards, 15 carries, 57 yards is not great. But, I mean, they did get some long runs today. Antonio Gibson had a long of 18. Brian Robinson had a long of 14. And whenever we needed a 3rd and short, both of those guys would find a way. Whenever it was 3rd and 5, they would find a way. It was a great game from them. Shouts out to the O-line for blocking pretty well in the run game. Again, we don't kill the stats when it comes to rush per carry. But almost 4 yards per carry, that's almost a first down. You know what I'm saying? That's a first down after 3 carries. I can live with that. I can live with that. That's good. And again, the primary purpose, really, honestly, the flow of the game, we were running better than what 3.8 yards per rush was saying. During the but it just got to a point. It was obvious we were running the ball. It was obvious we were trying to run the clock out in the second half. So they were able to stuff us for like 1 yard runs, no yard runs, 2 yard runs, and stuff like that. But in the flow of the game, when the game was still relatively competitive, we were definitely rushing at a higher clip than 3.8 yards per rush. So I'm cool with it. I love it. I don't care about those statistics that much. That doesn't bother me. Literally don't mind it at all. I mean, even Antonio Gibson probably could have had a touchdown rush. I know fantasy team owners are upset, but he could could have had a touchdown right there, that final drive with like a minute left or something. But the goal was to get out of that game with the least amount of injuries as possible with the dub, especially after a certain point. I think after the pick six, Rivera was like, well, that's about it. The Texans offense is so bad, we might be good from here. Let's just try to get out of this game as quickly as possible because nobody sees the Texans making some magical comeback. So I'll take it. And then receiver-wise, again, I already talked about it, how the ball was spread out. Logan Thomas, even though he was second in targets, he was first in receptions. He had 6 targets, 5 receptions. Terry had 7 targets, 4. But I just love how the ball was getting spread to everybody. Everybody got a chance. Cam Sims had at least 1 target. That's a season high for him, it seemed like. It literally feels like a season high for him. But great catch for 17 yards. I mean, somebody brought up in the stream what's going on with Curtis Samuel, because in the beginning, we was just using them with pre-snap motion. Shouts out to Scott Turner, man. We were using them pre-snap motion to confuse the defense. They're trying to keep track of them. Are they going to give them the ball? Are they not going to give them the ball? So it kind of freezes them and allows us to do what we want to do and getting the ball to everybody else, running the ball, that type of stuff. And we were basically just using Curtis Samuel as a distraction to start the game. And then after a while, we were like, all right, we see how you doing this. We see Scott Turner's in the booth. He sees it. After a while, Curtis Samuel's motioning, and the defense is kind of starting to ignore him a little bit. Like, oh, okay, they're not going to give him the ball. That's when we started giving the ball to Curtis Samuel. He started balling out. It was just part of the game plan. It just seemed like guys had drives. There was a Logan Thomas drive. There was a Terry McLaurin drive where he had like 2 or 3 targets. There was a Curtis Samuel drive. You know what I'm saying? I love it. I love how the receivers are being used. Again, if you're a fantasy team owner, it's not ideal. None of these guys put up crazy stats. The most receiving yards from anybody was Logan Thomas with 65. Terry McLaurin was next with 55. And then our running back, Antonio Gibson, had 31, 3 catches on 3 targets. So those, and none of them had touchdowns. So it's just like stats-wise, well, Curtis Samuel had a touchdown running the ball, but like receiving-wise, fantasy-wise, it's awful. It's like worst-case scenario. And I told y'all this before the offseason, but it's a good thing. It's a great winning formula for us to keep going this way. Shouts out to the receivers. Jahan Dotson still getting under his legs a little bit. Still not 100% from his hamstring, but the way he was getting open quite a bit today. He should have had 4 catches for like 40 yards, but other guys just happen to be more open some plays, and then sometimes Taylor Heinicke just missed them. But I'm not worried about Jahan Dotson. I think everything is good, and I just love the fact that Curtis Samuel, our wide receiver, has our only rushing touchdown of the day, and then Antonio Gibson, a running back, is our 3rd leading receiver, and a tight end is our 1st leading receiver. Wow, we have one of the more elite receiving groups in Terry, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel. How do you game plan for this team? I have no idea. Defensive coordinators get headaches trying to game plan for this team. It's literally just up to Scott. It's up to Scott Turner to call the plays, Taylor Heinicke to run the offense the way it should be, pick up crucial 3rd downs when we need it, and the offensive line just has to block. And this team, sky's the limit, honestly. And then tight end wise, Logan Thomas had his come out day today with as far as receiving. 5 catches, 65 yards, again leading our team in reception yards. That's huge, man. That is like really big. We need that because when Taylor Heinicke was bad, especially in that Vikings game, he was overthrowing Logan Thomas by 10 yards. I still don't understand how you overthrow a 6'6" guy by 10 yards, but it's okay. Now he's actually starting to hit him, and it's making our offense unguardable. You're worried about Terry, you're worried about Curtis Samuel, worried about Gibson, Brian Robinson, Jahan, and then here comes Logan Thomas underneath, or like an out route to the sideline, a linebacker trying to keep up with him. You know, it's just impossible to cover everybody. I love the fact that we're taking advantage of that. We're unpredictable, and shouts out to Scott Turner for finally starting to call some good games, putting together consecutive quarters. Now, again, I didn't like the red zone play calling, but it works. And then John Bates, he had 1 target. It was kind of I can't remember. It was like a really contested throw, I think. I think it was a good pass defense by the Texans. Whoever it was some type of play. But John Bates is mostly contributing in the blocking game. He is saving our offense line. I don't think y'all are watching film. Cornelius Lucas is literally getting bailed out by John Bates chipping the defensive linemen and stuff against the Eagles. There were times that Cornelius Lucas was so bad on the play, John Bates was almost one-on-one blocking Fletcher Cox. And man, shouts out to John Bates. He doesn't get enough credit because he's not out there putting up receiving stats, but John Bates keeps this offense moving. He is the glue to this offense right now. And then Cole Turner, I can't wait for him because the hype in the offseason was just so high, and I can't wait for him to get going. It sucks that he only had one target today, and I think it was like an overthrow no, it was an underthrow. It was pressure in Taylor Heineke's face. The ball was thrown in front of him by 3 yards. He had no chance. I really feel sorry for him. I want him to be more active, but it'll come. I still believe in Cole Holcomb's talent. I'm not worried about him. Eventually, Taylor Heinicke will gain that chemistry with him. Remember when Cole Turner was going crazy this offseason, when De'Ami Brown was going crazy this regular season, that was Carson Wentz throwing the ball. Taylor Heinicke just prefers different targets, and hopefully he can get acclimated to hitting De'Ami Brown the deep ball. Doubt it. And hopefully he can start to learn how to use Cole Turner in the red zone and utilize his height. I mean, he's our best jump ball receiver, in my opinion. It's between him and Cam Sims, probably. And Logan Thomas is really good, too, but Cole Turner just has a different level of jump ball ability in the red zone. He should be our best red zone target. And so with us struggling in the red zone right now, I can't wait for Cole Turner to get started. But one thing I did notice with Cole Turner is one play he was supposed to block on a running play. He literally just fell down on nothing, tripped on air. It was terrible. Cole Turner, we need you to become a better blocker, because when you become a better blocker, you can be on the field more. And your snaps are going to be limited, which means your targets are going to be limited. You're not going to be able to play because they can't have you on the field when it's a running play. And at the same time, John Bates and Logan Thomas, at least pose a threat in the run and passing game, whatever. If they're going to block, if they're going to be a receiving target, you at least got to pose a threat so that when Cole Turner, when you're on the field, it doesn't automatically let the defense know we're definitely throwing it. You need to be at least a good enough run blocker to where people can take you seriously enough on a run play to where, okay, they may run the ball, they may not, but right now, Cole Turner's on the field, they're throwing it. Obviously, and defenses know it, everybody knows it. So Cole Turner, I'm gonna need you to improve your blocking, because you just can't be on the field right now too much, because we run the ball more than anything else. We ran the ball 40 times. If you can't run block, when do you expect to be on the field to even get utilized? So again, I feel sorry for you, because the one target you had was not your fault that it was incomplete, but like, you got to become a better run blocker to see more playing time, period. Point blank, period. You got to become a better blocker. And then offensive line wise, again, just a struggle day overall. I don't know what's going on with Samuel Cosmi. Trey Turner upsets me, but at the end of the day, just like Taylor Heinicke, they were inconsistent, but they played well enough to win. They ran block when they needed to run block well and opened up holes for Gibson and Brian Robinson. They can't do it on their own. When Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are having these great runs, now granted, a lot of it is after the yards after catch, but a lot of it is also they're not getting touched till 5 yards down the field at times. So offensive line, inconsistent passing and run blocking, but just like Taylor Heinicke, made plays when we needed them to at the most, quite a bit. Not all the time, but quite a bit, enough to win. Offensive line, Taylor Heinicke are both enough to win type of guys right now. I would prefer if our offensive line were better than that. I would prefer if our quarterback play were better than that. But right now, they are enough to win with how good this run game and this defense is. At least they're not necessarily losing us games. I hate that type of mentality. I prefer to go for a top tier quarterback, but this is what we have right now. Let's rock. Let's go. Let's let it rock. It's working. Don't fix what's not broken. And then defense, I mean, what more can I say, man? Just Derek Forrest alone, man. But we got to start in order. We're going to start with the defensive line, then we go to linebacker, then we go to the DBs. This defensive line is unfair. Entering this game, I believe Montez Sweat leads the NFL in pressures. I think you had like 2.5 sacks today. Monster game. I can't wait for Chase Young to come back if he comes back. My whole just to kind of digress a little bit, my thing with Chase Young, I would love for him to play. First of all, selfishly as a fan, I just want to see him do what he does. I love football. Defensive line is literally my favorite part of football. So just as a fan of Chase Young, I would just love, selfishly as a fan, I would love to see him out there. But even on top of that, you know how priceless that is for Chase Young to go out there, say he plays like the last few games of the season, gets a couple of sacks, and takes that momentum and confidence that, yeah, I still got it. You know, I can explode off my knee and everything. I'm comfortable. I'm not worried about it. I'm not overthinking my injury and things like that. I'm working. All of that, you know, hand usage technique stuff I learned with Von Miller's actually working. I know how to use it. I'm not just learning it. I'm using it now. I'm using it practically, and like it's actually helping. You know how much confidence and how much momentum he could take into the offseason with that? So that's my main reason I want him to play before the end of the season. But at the same time, if he's not 100%, don't risk it, because we don't want to go through this again. And we're talking about possibly seeing Chase Young for the first time in 2024. You know what I'm saying? So I need us to figure out what's going on with him. I would love for him to play, but don't rush it. But yeah, man, this defensive line is unfair. Montez Sweat was leading the NFL, I believe, in pressures or something like that. QB hits, one of those statistics. I can't remember right now. I'm gonna have to check my sources, but and then to come out and have 2.5 sacks, I believe. And then Deron Payne leading our team in sacks. And then he got a sack today and a pass defense. I think he batted down the ball, which is, out of anybody on our defensive line, he's the best ball batter downer. I don't know if that's a phrase, but he is. He's our best ball batter downer on our team. Yeah, they credited Montez Sweat with 2 sacks. I swear he should have had 2.5 because one of those Jonathan Allen sacks, he was right there with them, but I don't know. But Montez Sweat still leads our team in sacks with 6.5 now. He came in with 5.5. He has a career high in sacks, and that was halfway through the season. That was a couple of games ago. He had a career high, and he has the most passes batted down on our team out of all of our defensive linemen, and he's already tied his career high through a season with that. So Deron Payne is having his best year in his life by far. And then moving on from Montez Sweat and Deron Payne, the defensive lineman that deserves to be an all-pro even more than them is Jonathan Allen. He had 2 sacks a day. Poor Kenyon Green, rookie. Hey, welcome to the league, man. You're going against one of the best of the best. Jonathan Allen was going against food, and he treated him like it. That's what it's supposed to be. When you go against a lesser opponent, overall team-wise, Commanders versus Texans, but even just as specific in micro, not macro, but micro is Jonathan Allen versus Kenyon Green. You're supposed to win that matchup. He did that. Run game, passing game, forcing holding penalties. He should have had even probably 1 or 2 more sacks if he didn't get held. And thank goodness the refs actually called a holding penalty on an opposing offensive line. That was amazing in itself. Shouts out to Dan Snyder announcing that he's going to sell the team, because now suddenly the refs like us. I mean, you can argue in the Vikings game, we got the advantage for the refs. And at least the Eagles game, you can say it was even. So, refs don't hate us no more. You know what I'm saying? Shouts out to Dan Snyder for saying he's going to sell the team. I swear that has to be it, because nothing else has changed. The refs suddenly actually call things on the opposing team for once. But, man, Jonathan Allen's having an all-pro year. If he's not all-pro, I'm rioting. I'm flipping tables. It makes no sense. Montez Sweat and Deron Payne are also having Pro Bowl level years. Again, if you look at advanced stats, Montez Sweat is leading the NFL in something like QB hits or QB pressures, and Deron Payne is having the best season of his career and leading our team in sacks. This is ridiculous. This defensive line is unstoppable, and even the backups, Epe Abada, Casey Toohill, man, these guys are balling. J. Smith Williams is not necessarily flashy, but he gets everything done. He's good against the run, and he's holding the edge. Everything. You know what? It's really more so than anything. First of all, the defensive line is playing better. But shouts out to Warren Sapp for coming and getting these guys away from that Sam Mills III philosophy. Remember, he said the way basically Sam Mills was coaching is this is not right. Y'all need to stop playing like this. I don't know why he has y'all playing like this. Y'all need to be the ones making plays. Instead of playing like how you played in Alabama and being like the distraction, the people eater, and letting the linebackers make plays. No, you are the athlete. You are the freak athlete. You are the generational talent. You go make the play type of thing. And they've been balling since. And shouts out to Jeff Zganina, because he's been stepping up big time. This defensive line has improved mightily. And again, J. Smith Williams isn't flashy, but most importantly, and Jeff Zganina, and I'm pretty sure Warren Sapp as well, have been preaching this, is discipline, responsibility-led football. You play your gap, you play your role. It's not about getting the sack necessarily. It's not being the star player on the defensive line. It's doing your role and not allowing quarterbacks any lanes to work through. And the sacks are going to come when you play together as a unit. This defensive line is the best in the NFL. I don't even think it's close, but we can have debates everywhere around it. But Jonathan Allen's an all-pro. Montez Sweat and Deron Payne aren't far behind him. And if we get Chase Young back, it's sick. It's sickening for these other NFC teams. They will be sick to their stomach if they see Chase Young come out against the Falcons, get 2 sacks, and looks 100% healthy. They're going to be sick. Linebacker-wise, John Bostic, stop putting him in coverage. He is slow. I'm probably faster than him. It's so bad. Now, I want to blame Jack Del Rio a little bit, but kudos to the Texans for game planning on getting Brandon Cooks in front of John Bostic. But granted, it seemed like nobody but Benjamin St. Juste could cover Brandon Cooks. John Bostic on him, torched. Kendall Fuller on him, torched. Benjamin St. Juste on him, ball batted up, perfect sticky defense, Derek Forrest interception. We're going to talk about them later, but John Bostic, man, It's sad that he's our second linebacker on the depth chart. It's Jamin Davis, who some people felt like wasn't even a starting linebacker to enter the season. He's playing 100% of snaps. At times, he's the only linebacker on the field, holding it down while Cole Holcomb's hurt and David Mayo is banged up. Outside of Jamin Davis, Jon Bostic is literally our second healthy linebacker on the that is crazy. The fact that Jack Del Rio is getting what he's getting out of this defense and Jon Bostic is our second linebacker is ridiculous, man. Shouts out to him. Also, shouts out to Jack Del Rio for getting creative. I saw that Bobby McCain blitz in the first quarter. I like that. And also, I like the adjustment that Jon Bostic gets beat by Brandon Cooks. Kendall Fuller gets beat by Brandon Cooks. Let's just go ahead and put Benjamin St-Juste on him. Benjamin St-Juste, I don't care where Brandon Cooks is. You follow him because I'm sick of this. And an interception happens immediately. It's that simple, right? Benjamin St-Juste is that good, isn't he? But yeah, man, shouts out to Jamin Davis for holding. I don't think y'all understand how much responsibility is on Jamin Davis's shoulders. And if he wasn't playing well, how much of a hole we would have on the second level of our defense. He is literally playing 100% of snaps. At times, again, he was the only linebacker on the field. The only. We're supposed to be running a defense where we have 3 linebackers on the field. A lot of the time, he's on the field by himself. I don't think Jamin Davis is getting anywhere near as much credit he deserves amongst this fan base. It's ridiculous. Secondary wise, what can I say? Cameron Curl led our team in tackles. He's different. Bobby McCain was second, even making plays in the run game. Bobby McCain played very well today. Derek Forrest is this crazy, dare I say, elite free safety at this point. That interception, to be able to get your shoulder in bounds, he was supposed to be there. You expect your free safety to be there. But us as Commanders fans, after Sean Taylor, we're not used to our safety doing things like this. When the ball is batted up into the air, when there's a play to be made down the field, Derek Forrest is there to make it. And it's just crazy that we haven't had that. Other teams are spoiled. They're used to that. Oh, your free safety doesn't get interceptions every now and then? Your free safety didn't get an interception in back-to-back games this season? Oh, wow. But now Derek Forrest has 3 interceptions this season. Those are all 3 for his career. And now he has back-to-back interceptions, 1 in the Eagles, 1 in the Texans game. He's a Pro Bowler. Like I said in the live stream, I'm working on a video of our top 10 Pro Bowl candidates, and that's even including Jeremy Reeves on special teams. The top 10 players on the Commanders that should make the Pro Bowl, who we need to vote for and things like that. Derek Forrest is having a Pro Bowl level season. Again, entering this game, I believe Pro Football Focus had Cameron Curl ranked as the second best safety in NFL. Derek Forrest was the third. Pro Football Focus feels like Cameron Curl and Derek Forrest are 2 of the best 3 safeties out of the entire NFL, and that the Commanders have the best safety group in the NFL by far, the elite. I mean, how can you argue against them when they're making plays like this so consistently? Cameron Curl is everywhere, underneath, back deep, making plays in the run game, making plays, blowing up screens, making plays in the run game. It's just, bruh. And then Derek Forrest is not letting anything behind him, which is huge. Oh my, it's ridiculous. This secondary is crazy. Of course, Benjamin St-Juste, you didn't really hear his name much today because you know why? He wasn't targeted. He had no tackles. He had no tackles. He wasn't targeted. I swear the only target he got this game was Brandon Cooks when he forced the interception. I think Davis Mills after that was like, yeah, nah, I'm good. That guy over there different. We'll just keep abusing Kendall Fuller. And speaking of Kendall Fuller, first of all, that pick 6 was amazing. And I think overall he still had a really good game. I feel like one of those Brandon Cooks catches against him where he went from like the right to the left, he just didn't have like a good position to start there. Brandon Cooks is too fast for him to be playing that for all. So I feel like I should blame more Jack Del Rio in that situation. Like I think the first big Brandon Cooks play, maybe the second catch he had, I can't remember, one of the first, definitely one of the first 2 catches he had of the game. It was the first one, one of them, the first one that he had on Kendall Fuller. I'm not mad at him. And then a couple after that, I think one was like on 4th down. The defense is tired. The defense is ready to go home. They know this game is over. So I'm not going to be mad at Kendall Fuller. I still think he played a pretty good game. I would say this is 3 good games for him in a row. But again, Benjamin St-Juste is obviously our best corner. And I want y'all to take notice that, you know, Bob McCain is technically starting in the slot. He's our slot corner with Rashad Wildgoose kind of hurt / benched. Danny Johnson plays sparingly, but Bob McCain is our starting slot corner right now, and it's working for the most part. And Derek Forrest is just starting free safety for the most part. But again, Jack Del Rio, like I explained from the Eagles game review, Jack Del Rio has that man everywhere. That man played like 20 snaps free safety against the Eagles, like 15 in the box and like 10 at nickel or something like that against the Eagles. Like literally almost a third of the way like evenly split across. And I think he may have done something like that again today. I'm about to look at the all 22 to know, but I mean, you can clearly tell he played quite a bit of free safety today. He definitely took Bobby McCain's spot there. And I think it's also a mix of they probably just prefer Bobby McCain in the slot over whoever we have else in the slot right now. And then also Derek Forrest has just been playing free safety better. He's just such a freak athlete. His range is better. So it just makes sense. And then before we move on, of course, man, shouts out to Jack Del Rio again. Shouts out to Scott Turner. Shouts out to Ron Rivera. You know, finally had your first game where I can say, like, time management, calling timeouts when you needed to, not calling challenge flags. I mean, calling a good challenge flag when you were supposed to. The Derek Forrest situation, you know what I'm saying? I believe that was your challenge. I don't think that was a booth review. I think that was Ron Rivera. Either way, I don't have any issue with Rivera's time management and situational awareness today, so shouts out to him. But special teams, man, balling other than Tressway in the first quarter. I mean, the ability to flip field positioning is huge, bruh. To be able to pin them deep on punts. Dax Milne even had a couple of good returns today, making guys miss. It still looks like he's running in slow motion, but it just seemed like everybody around him was running in even slower motion. And then, of course, the MVP. Also, shouts out to Antonio Gibson for his 2 returns for 48 yards in the kick return game. We need that. I can't wait for him to break one this year because I think he will. But the MVP himself, Joey Slye, 3 of 3 for field goals, 2 of 2 of extra points. I think last week he went 4 of 4 on field goals, 2 of 2 for extra points as well. This man is lights out right now. He's a franchise kicker, and that's huge for us, man. Thank goodness. If Joey Slye is available in your fantasy league, you better get him because this man is different. He's right back to how he was the end of last season. I don't know what it was in the preseason where he was nervous. I don't know what it was even in the beginning of this regular season when he was missing kicks that he definitely should have made. But now he's on point. Short, long. I mean, his longest today was 44, but you saw him make a 58 and a 55 against the Eagles. And he made a 67 during pregame warmups. I don't know if a lot of people know that. He made a 67-yard kick in pregame warmups before this Texans game. This man has caught fire. I don't know what happened. I don't know if his diet changed. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he's meditating, doing yoga now. Whatever it is, keep doing it. If it's because of the color socks that you've been wearing every day, wear them same color socks every game day. I don't care what it is. Do not change what you're doing because you are lights out and literally playing like one of the best kickers in the NFL these past 2 games. I'm not going to declare him as one of the best kickers in the NFL right now because he's only been doing it for like 2-3 games in a row. But this 2-3 game span, he's been one of the best kickers in the NFL for sure. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. Definitely add your points, anything that I didn't discuss in this video as well. And of course, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsor name you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm going to catch y'all later, man. I'm out.